And the third case involving children I wanted to discuss is the case of Orrin and Orson, Sincere and Classic. So Orrin and Orson West, the young boys, they were 3 and 4 at the time, they were reported missing by their adoptive parents, Jacqueline and Trezell West. They, as a family of 6 children in total, 2 biological and 4 adopted, they moved as a family from Bakersfield into Cal City in September last year, and on the 21st of December, Trezell called 911 and reported Orrin and Orson missing. Where were the other 4? Well, because Orrin and Orson are a handful, and because 6 children would be a handful for the grandparents to look after, rather than these people that weren't working, that didn't have any obligations to be anywhere at any particular time, rather than all 6 children and the 2 parents stay at the grandparents so that all children could enjoy a holiday with grandparents, Trezell and Jacqueline on the 19th of December loaded up what we think looks like 4 children, but they say it was 6, loaded up children into their white van and drove them back to Bakersfield, dropped them off with the West grandparents, and went back to Cal City by their own storytelling with Orrin and Orson, and this is who was in the home: Jacqueline, Trezell, Orrin and Orson. At the time, Orrin and Orson were reported missing on the 21st of December. The story told is that Jacqueline wanted to wrap some Christmas presents, and rather do this at just some convenient time, maybe when Daddy Trezell is taking the children to the park during the day, during the warmest hours, she decides to kick the boys out of the home into the cold of the falling night to play with chalk. So to sit on cold concrete and draw with chalk. Footage taken after this shows no chalk and no drawings, and then a little piece of chalk strangely appeared in subsequent images. But during this time, Trezell, the story goes, is out collecting wood and chopping wood. So he's going through a side gate of the backyard into an empty lot, and he is gathering wood, bringing it in and taking it inside. On one of his trips inside, the boys disappear, poof, into thin air. Dogs don't bark. Dogs don't also disappear out the side gate following the little kids, as you might expect they would do either of those things. Trezell goes out to his car. He gets in the van and he hits a bunch of corners. He said, Jacqueline never leaves the house. I would be running around the neighbourhood screaming for the boys, knocking on doors, barely waiting for anyone to open. I would be hysterical. Maybe that's just me. So if Orrin and Orson were there, how did they leave the house? Probably in that van. They were probably already loaded in the van before this farce was acted out. So when Trezell is out hitting a bunch of corners, what is he doing with these boys, alive or dead? I don't know. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. Personally, in my opinion, those boys never made it to Cal City. I think they were long gone. The last photograph we know of showing them alive is one that was taken at a West's property in Las Vegas at Thanksgiving 2019. The Wests can't produce proof of life. Any date after that, no one in the family has produced proof of life. Doctor's records, doctor's visits, there's no footage that has emerged, as we might expect in this day and age, from the family all together in, say, a Taco Bell or a McDonald's restaurant in Cal City. No footage has emerged of them going to the pictures together, or maybe just at a petrol station, as we might expect in this day and age. So to me, then, they have orchestrated this, right? But what I wanted to say there is just this new announcement from the Bakersfield police chief that this is not a cold case. And he's given you a few little statistics, how many search warrants, how many pieces of evidence taken in. It doesn't really seem like that much for half a year researching these 2 children. But anyway, that was the news. They're still on it, apparently. One thing I want to talk about with regards to them is is what's being brought up all the time in media, YouTubes and everything, and that is trafficking. Now, there is a channel, or a few channels that sort of, they're sort of all band together in their little clique, and there's a channel that was trying to say, hey, there's no trafficking in Bakersfield and Cal City, because, people are worried and concerned. Hey, were these children kidnapped? Have they been taken away for, exploitation and abuse? And they're saying no, because, we know that the biological family have something to do with this. We know that the biological fathers are involved in gangs, the Crips. I mean, that would make the adoptive family scared, wouldn't it, to make this announcement that something's happened to the children? Yeah. And, they're trying to deny that there's a problem, because they're saying, well, look at all these people reported missing. Look how many are returned. All of them except 4 dead children. Wow, so there's no trafficking. And the pathetic thing about this is that they are manipulating data because of to suit their narrative, and this is a sick thing to do. This is abuse in itself, because this is denying suffering. This is denying people's truths. If someone goes okay, number one, what is trafficking? It is the trade in something illegal, drugs or child abuse. And it's not, in the case of child trafficking, it's not just children disappearing, being sold into foreign countries and things like that. No. In America, trafficking is a domestic problem, and this is how it happens. Children are used and abused in their own home. They are used and abused when they're on a family holiday. Oh, we went down to Florida and stayed at a nice resort. This is trafficking. Children are in their own homes, and they are filmed, they are photographed. Those videos and that, those photographs are sold. Time with the children in their own bedroom, where they should be most safe, is sold. People come into their own house and abuse them in their own house for whatever the parents get out of it, because they're just sick fucks for some sort of trade, for some sort of protection, for money, for their sick kids. So this is trafficking. Maybe the missing statistics include young children, teenagers or preteens that run away because they are being trafficked, because they're being abused and exploited. And then maybe they are returned straight back into these abusive environments. And you don't have the curiosity to want to know what these statistics mean. Do they involve children that were kidnapped by family members for the sake of abuse, or taken away by family members from abusive homes and then they had to be returned because of the law? Children run away and then returned of their own volition because it didn't work out. They're returning to at least something that they know. You've got to look at the missing statistics for what they are. Doesn't mean that there wasn't exploitation involved just because people are found. It's not just a straight up murder or just a fact of someone that ran away and came back or was kidnapped momentarily and returned. Yeah, you've just got to take it further, okay? So yes, there is a big trafficking problem in America. It's a domestic issue. It's happening right in front of our eyes. It is happening right in front of our eyes. People in your neighborhood are being trafficked right in front of your eyes, okay? So I understand that if the police gave us some of what they know, it could damage their case in court. But we really need to know, when were these last boys proven to be alive? Don't you want to know that? What do you think? Do you think they made it to Cal City? Because I don't. And, look at Teresa Balboa being interviewed and then listen to Jacqueline West. Don't you just feel the same thing? Listening to both of them? Yeah. The same grief and guilt oozes out of Dalton Orson as oozed out of Al Stout. Now Al has to live with his decision to go to spend time with it. He didn't need to go the night before. It's only to Denver before he's shipped out. He could have gone early in the morning. He could have listened to his son and returned. He could have sent someone around for a welfare check. Because of all the weird communication, the imagery being sent to him, the strange conversation with his son, the last conversation, the strange conversations with Letitia over text. He knew when he went back, because he raced back, he knew instantly before we knew anything. As soon as Letitia had reported Gannon missing, he knew she had killed him. And he expresses that combination of grief and guilt. It oozes out of him. This is a selfish, weak man. And I know people will say you are victim blaming. I am not saying that he didn't love his son and that he's not 100% devastated and grieving, but he has a responsibility that he is not owning up to. His poor choices. Now, yes, Al Stout was in the military. He had to go away on some sort of maneuver, and he had been in a relationship with T. Stout for a number of years, and in their household was a child of Letitia Harley Harden, and two of his children. And the relationship with T had probably broken down over a number of years. It was certainly very poor in Alaska, because in Alaska, T was causing havoc for him because she was super pissed off that that's where they were. And she was clearly deranged. I think Al Stout knew it, and I think he knew what pressure she was under. I believe they'd already broken up when he went off on his manoeuvres via Denver the night before he really did need to leave. Why did he go? Because he had a girlfriend. He wanted to go and get his rocks off, and he was selfish. He could have made arrangements for his little daughter and Gannon before he left that was suitable. It is not suitable to leave your young, vulnerable children in a volatile situation. T was already aggressive, violent, disturbed, under stress, and he knew her stance was that she has no obligation to these children. I mean, now we can say, yes, she does. Everyone has obligation to keep children safe, etc., etc. That's not how nature works, though. And the woman scorned. She probably knew about his relationship. And if you know anything about the case, you'll know the Google searches that she was making. And she was a devastated woman. She was struggling to get work. She was starting a new job that she didn't know quite how it was going to pan out, because she knew that she was a big fat liar about her history, her abilities, the stress she would have been undergoing, and to start and to perform in this persona of this educator, of this reliable woman, would have been immense. Her husband's off. She knows he's with another woman. She knows she's there caring for two minor children. Her daughter was nearly of the age of emancipation, and was trying to leave T by joining the military herself, because no doubt as the child of a narcissist, she felt exactly the same way that Tylee Ryan did about her mother. She knew how she had to handle her mother, but she knew also that she needed to get away. And Harley would also have known exactly what her mother was like and was capable of, and I think she was made an accomplice in a sense with what she was asked to do over these few days surrounding Gannon's death. But anywho, so Letitia knows that here she is trying to deal with a new job. She's trying to look after 2 young children that aren't hers. Her husband's gone and left her to see another woman well before he even needed to leave the home. He has expected her to just stay in this caregiver role when she's not getting his love and report, in return. No sex, no love, no support. She's going to be financially devastated. She knows probably this job's not going to work out. I believe that. And indeed, she'd already been fired. Okay, so this is building up to what happened to Gannon. So she's just in a devastated situation. She can't just leave. She'd probably just want to leave on her own, get out, start fresh, She doesn't have to take her older child. She wants to go and just live a single life without the encumbrance. Oh, but she's got these 2 tiny minor children, 9 and 4 or 7, I believe. 11 and 7. Sorry, I can't remember. 11 and 7. Lena, I can't remember how old she was. And she's just left holding the baby, so to speak, with this life that she doesn't want. She's not getting anything out of it. And Al knew this, and he knew she was mentally disturbed, violent, manipulative. It's part of why he's not wanting to be with her any longer, right? And this selfish man has thought with his balls, and rather than saying, look, should we arrange for a time, because our marriage is breaking up. Landon now is more secure. She's through her issues. She's got her own children, but she's in a relationship with a stable person. It's a stable family life. Let's see if I can arrange to get the children to Landon, to the mother who loves these children. Yes, she had lost custody. Everyone's got history. She, in a sense, I won't go down too much further. I've already gone too far, haven't I? But, did he try to make arrangements for these children that were suitable, that were legitimate? He thought Letitia was trash. He kicked her to the curb. He didn't want her. He was just using her, and he left his vulnerable children with her. I believe that he had seen violent acts. He'd seen how she abused him emotionally. We've all seen how T abused Gannon emotionally. We've seen video of this. And off Al goes. He's going to be not in this home for a long period of time, just like Dalton Orson, and tragedy happened. Now, yes, bottom line is no one is culpable. No one is, at the end of the day, responsible other than the perpetrator, the murderer, right? But what we have to take responsibility of in society is all these things that lead up to creating a moment where it is possible for a child to be murdered, where it is possible for a child to be exploited, abused, disrespected, unwanted, unsafe. We need to look at what in society means that this happens. And look, relationships don't work out a lot of the time. A lot of people are divorced and remarried, and but they're creating more and more complicated lives for the children then, aren't they, too? Because they're having children in one relationship, children in another, then another, and then a man might come along into, say, a woman's life where there are 4 children under his roof and none of them are his. And the woman is expecting the same amount of care as if they were biologically his. And this just isn't nature. Now, many people will go into these situations and carry them out with aplomb, or at least do enough of a good job to get people safely into adulthood, without harming them in any dreadful way. Sexual abuse, emotional, physical abuse, or neglect, But it just opens a floodgate to abuse and to neglect. And think about it. Think about, okay, if you're going into your 3rd marriage, is this a good idea? How old are my children now? Maybe I need to have a few single years raising these children up to emancipation. Maybe you need to wait 6 more years until your children are 18. They can live sustainably in their own home, or they can stay with you, but they can make the decisions. They're adults, okay? By continually bringing people, men and women, into the lives of our children, we are endangering these children. And then you've got people like Trevor Gurnan abandoning children into situations, into just random families, essentially strangers to these kids. And Monica would hate what's happened to Cash. Of course she does. Of course she wishes he was alive. A lot of it is coming from a place of self-preservation, and she's lost her ability just to live her drug-using life. She's possibly going to get charged with neglect and with whatever else, with maybe, I feel like it's a kidnapping. These children were brought to her home, yes, but as soon as the father left, they're abandoned. She's keeping them. She's holding these children against all moral will, against all legal right. She doesn't have a legal right to these children. She's aware of the CPS. Maybe she was thinking, I don't want them to go into care, But look at the situation. Carter Gurnan is in custody of Melinda, the mother's mother, okay? That could have happened months earlier, and they could have been safe now, and with family, with grandmother. She could have said, these children have been abandoned. Look, the father, I've given him 2 days to calm down, come back, think about what he was doing, and just make reparation and do the right thing. He hasn't. So look, we need to work this out. What do I do? How do we do this? And then the judgments could have been made, and the children most likely, then and there, back in March, would have been taken to grandmother. Okay? Simple as that. I mean, so many fails, and it's just too easy for us to fail and then just get so distraught and angry later. Prevention is better than cure, because there is no fucking prevention for murder, is there? There's no cure, there is no cure for murder. Too late. Yeah, so we can see the threads running through these cases, through murdered child Samuel Orson, murdered at the hands, allegedly, of Teresa Balboa, a woman who is nothing to these children. We can see the thread of neglect and abandonment in the case of Cash and Carter Gurnan, where Cash was murdered, I allege, by Darian Brown, a known dangerous entity in this neighbourhood, and where so many things could have happened leading up to it that would have prevented this from being possible. It would have been impossible for Cash Gurnan to be murdered by Darian Brown if Darian Brown had been charged when he tried to abduct a 2-year-old girl, or when he threatened the life of a family, or when he did whatever happened in the incident just days before Cash's murder, when something happened between Darry and Cash to make Monica say, finally, you are not welcome here in this house. We can see the thread with Orrin and Orson West, where, look, these children were adopted into the home, but should they have been? Because the family wasn't really stable enough to be having permanent, this allowed to have the permanent care of these children. They already were struggling, it seems, and they seem like very disconnected parents. What is the judgment and the process going into choosing foster families and then choosing that they can keep them and adopt them? Is it just because it's just few and far between? It's very difficult to find the homes in these areas. There's just so many children needing care. I mean, it seems to be a way of life for the foster parents in some instances there in this area. They know that they can step up and that there is such a great need that they will be accepted, and then they're getting income from these children. These children need somewhere to go, but how are we monitoring their little lives once they are placed in care? That's enough. I've got a splitting headache. So I will get going. I just wanted to bring up Heath Harris's announcements, and I wanted to bring up the announcement of Bakersfield Police Chief Greg Terry, where he's trying to assure us that missing boys, Orrin and Orson, it's not a cold case. I'll speak to you later. I mean, I've got so much I want to say about all of the cases that I've discussed today. About Letitia, I mean, she is truly deranged. She really is. It doesn't mean she's not culpable. It doesn't mean that she shouldn't be in prison forever. But she is clearly someone that is out of her mind. And as Nicole Kessinger might say, yeah, her cheese slid off her cracker a long time ago. I thoroughly believe that. And Letitia is a product of her environment. Her whole life, things that were happening to her and choices that she's made, and just her environments and everything, and probably genetics and probably so many things, has led up to it being possible for her to be a child murderer. I mean, she may never have thought this would be something she could do. No one, I didn't say that very well, but it shouldn't be a surprise. And it shouldn't be a surprise to Al Stauch that this is what's happened. I just, what did he think could happen? Any abuse and neglect is not acceptable. And he knew that Cannon wasn't really going to be too happy, and that he wasn't really going to be entirely safe. He knew that. I believe that. And yet off he goes. And, it is tricky because we've got a society, we're living in such a way where we have to make all these sacrifices, these choices that feel like they're not choices, so that we can live life, earn money. But it shouldn't be natural. It shouldn't be part of life, just an acceptable happenstance in society that parents abandon children with people that, just random people, or with, with people that it's obviously dangerous, or, obviously aren't. Where revenge, where resentment, where hate, anger, and all of these things can be active in the environment the child's being left in. We need to put the children first. It's just indisputable. It's as indisputable as it is Darian Brown in that room taking cash. Okay, it is him. It is him. And in good time, I hope we never find out exactly what happened, because I know it's going to be horrific, but in good time we will find out what happened between 4:58 and 7 a.m. or 6:45 even. But to start racking up gossip and innuendo and these discussions about how Monica has contrived this whole situation to get back at Trevor and to frame Darian is just one of the most disgusting, ludicrous theories that's ever been brought to true crime. It's not okay. It's not that it's not something that it isn't possible. Of course, a woman could contrive to do this, but in this instance, it's just so clearly not the case. I don't know. I guess time will tell. But it's just my belief, just repeating what I've said already, sorry. It's my belief that Darian Brown murdered Cash Gurnan, and that Monica Sherrod understood instantly the just beyond the murder itself, the enormity of this tragedy, what it meant for her because of the exposure of her life, who she is, her decisions, her failings. This is what I got from that. So, yeah, I'll speak to you later. Take care.